So a couple of days ago was Father's Day, and Father's Day, Mother's Day has become very interesting. In fact, we have so many days right now, and the world has become a very interesting day. There's a day for everything, and this is something I didn't grow up being used to. Having the day of the girl child, day of the male child, the day for different things. I can't think of them right now, but there are so many days. There's almost a day for every single day. I remember working on this brochure, and it highlighted all the days, and I was so shocked all the days that were set apart. But then, growing up, I've been used to Father's Day, Mother's Day, and as I said just a couple of days ago, we celebrated Father's Day. And today, I want to talk about my frustration with Father's Day, with the way we celebrate Father's Day in recent times. I want to talk about certain frustrations I have with it. I don't particularly look forward to the public energy during Father's Day. I appreciate Father's Day in my home. Um, I look forward to celebrating it with my family within my home. But when I have to look at my phone on Father's Day, there's a particular irritation I have. And to be honest with you, even when I go to church on Father's Day, there's a particular irritation I have. And that's what I want to share with you, my frustration with Father's Day. And I want to focus a lot on Father's Day today, even though this also extends to Mother's Day. But I'll touch on Mother's Day, but then dwell more in Father's Day, because I'm a man, and I I'm going to talk strictly from the perspective of a man here, and I really want women to listen in, but especially I want men to listen in. You know, the last Father's Day, or the recent Father's Day, the one that just went by now, um, going to church. I think the theme of this year's Father's Day was a responsible man. A responsible man, which on a good day is a very good topic. I think it's a topic that should be treated, not just in churches, but it should be a subject matter that you should go into communities to talk about, not just on Father's Day, but every single day. So I was kind of excited about this topic. But then when 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 we started talking about this topic, the responsible man, men of different age groups were told to come out and talk about being a responsible man. But then, something that really concerned me was when a lot of men came out. Most men, different age groups, people in their 70s, people in their 40s, and young men maybe in their late 20s and things like that. A lot of them married, all of them married. And they talked about what it meant to be a responsible man. I think what was the biggest concern to me was the fact that everyone touched on provision and protection. Provision and protection. Those were two boxes that always had to be checked. I protect my family, I provide for my family. These were two critical conditions for being a responsible man, a responsible father, a responsible husband. Provision and protection. You see, earlier on, we have a culture in church during Father's Day. We always ask those who in the church have their fathers alive, and those who their fathers are late. But this year, a lot of times when that happens, I'm not really observant. I'm just more keen to just stand for whichever category I'm in. And my father is very much alive, and I'm very grateful for that. But this year, a few days ago, when the church was asked, if your father is late, I decided to pay attention. And what I saw shocked me. I realized that if not more than half, well, at least half of the church stood up. And I took time to look at these people who their fathers were late. And I saw people who were elderly. Yeah, okay, this person's elderly, their father will be late, but they weren't as many. I saw middle-aged people. I said, these people, their fathers were late. And I'm like, okay, maybe their fathers were a little elderly. But then I saw a lot of young people, a lot of young children also stand up because their fathers were late. And I compared it to Mother's Day a couple of months ago, and the same thing happened, but they were not up to half of the church that stood up that had late mothers, that had mothers that were diseased. And this was concerning. And I realized that the reason why men are dying in large numbers or are dying young is not because men are made any different from women. It's not because men are more prone to diseases. I realized that the reason is mainly because of these two factors that we feel, these two gateways that men feel they need to go through to prove that they are responsible: provision and protection. This is why people are losing their fathers in huge numbers. Yes, there are some reckless ways in which men live. Men can live recklessly, you understand? They are daring. But a lot of these things, this recklessness and this daringness that we have as men, is also very rooted in our need to prove that we are courageous, we are strong, we are good, we can protect people because we are courageous. Another thing is our recklessness when it comes to consumption of alcohol, and we drive when we are drunk and stuff like that, and stuff like that. Reckless living, a lot of times, is also because of the frustration that men feel because they do not feel like they're strong enough to protect or have the capacity to provide. When men feel a frustration at work, they feel it's affecting their ability to provide. And so you see that man closes from work is going to drive recklessly. A lot of them will drive recklessly. Check out a man that is driving recklessly. One of those things is either trying to prove to somebody or impress somebody that is a courageous man that is daring, or a frustrated man that has something up, a contract has gone wrong, something has gone wrong at work, or it feels like a woman somewhere hasn't respected him. Just check it. Women don't drive as fast because they're calmer in spirit. Because a lot of them don't saddle themselves with these two burdens: protection and provision. So when I thought about it, I was very concerned because I totally believe that those two things, protection and provision, have nothing to do with being a man or a responsible man. Those two things, protection and provision, they have nothing to do. Nothing. Nothing. Those two things are, a lot of times, are rooted in cultural beliefs, are rooted in misogynistic beliefs, are rooted in feminist influences, are rooted in childhood trauma, are rooted in low self-esteem, and are rooted in a lack of understanding or relationship with God, a lack of understanding of God's word, God's desire, and this stems from a lack of a relationship with God. They are not spiritual. They are not spiritual. But unfortunately, we have made them spiritual and we've made them unconditional to judging whether a man is a responsible man, father, or husband. They are not. I'm here to tell you that they are not. They are not. In fact, they are doing more harm, causing more harm to the man than the man even knows. And interestingly enough, causing more harm to the woman than the woman even knows. It is not a thing to be celebrated. Provision and protection are not things that need to be checked off for you to see yourself as responsible or as a man or as a good man. No. They are not. We have taken them on and they've become very strong, but they are not. Our fathers have taught us that they are not. Mothers have taught women to desire that in men. It is not. It is not. And I want you to hear me out. I'll tell you why it doesn't work. I'll tell you why it's doing more to destroy. In fact, when we say these things, and as it was being said in church, I disagreed. I disagreed. Although no, church is not an environment where you could raise up your hand and say, I have this view, this opposing view. But if it were like a Bible study where it was open to, I would have given an opposing view. You understand? Because I disagree. I don't disagree with my church, but I disagree with the stance of my church and many other churches on matters like this. This issue of provision and protection. I do not think it is something that men ought to saddle themselves with, or any person ought to say it is my responsibility to protect and to provide. I think I've hinted on this on a lot of podcasts before. Protection and provision is a core function of God, and God can choose who this comes from. When we make this a core function of man, we decide by ourselves, by our own individual standards, or by our own intellect, to curse ourselves as men, or to allow society curse us as men. It is a curse to put upon yourself the responsibility of provision and protection, because then you begin to contend with God. And to contend with God is a very devastating thing. The Bible states it in such a way as kicking against the thorns. When you kick against the thorns, you are going to end up with more injuries than the thorns will. The thorns will end up destroying your feet or your foot than you would the thorns. Being a man is not about provision, and I'll tell you what it's about today. I say this because personally I'm sick of men coming on social media on Father's Day trying to encourage other men about their abilities to provide and to protect. It's getting sickening to me as an individual. I feel it's a self-pity tactics, and it's celebrating values that actually act more as vices. It's a misogynistic mindset. Oh, and nobody sees you with all your protection. You're the one that keeps evil away from the family. You keep the family from this. You do this. I know. And you're always encouraging your fellow man. Oh, your bro, my bro. Nobody sees you, but I see you. You protect. You provide. You sell all you have to provide. Nah, not moving us forward. It's not. It's making us weaker as human beings, not even as men, as human beings. And it's not God's desire for us. This mindset and this positioning doesn't bring about a blessing. And this is how we still have men in their droves dying young, killing themselves, leaving their homes, even with all this mentality, because they feel like victims. and God did not make you a victim. So I want to talk to men and women today. What makes a responsible man? You see, to understand this as a Christian, I'm going to talk as a Christian here. I'm not going to talk about any other faith. I'm going to talk about as a Christian. We must go back to the beginning. Adam and Eve. Very important. The story of Adam and Eve, I realized that we teach it to children. The first time, if we want to teach a child about the Bible, we start from Genesis. I don't think it's right. Genesis is too dense for a child to understand. It will seem like a storybook. They won't get it. Genesis, the beginning, the Old Testament, is too dense. It is the word of God, but a lot is not actually revealed in actual relatable words. And that's why you realize that when you raise children, teaching them from Genesis first, it's very possible for those children, before they begin to get into the New Testament, which is clearer, a lot of them are detached from the Bible as a hard to understand book about a hard God, about a lot of killing, about a lot of things, but they don't understand that Old Testament is more principle based. If you try to practice everything in the Old Testament, you will get frustrated. The Old Testament is it's a very strong part of the Bible, but then it needs a mature mind. The New Testament is not a new believer place where new believers should, no, when a new believer read the Bible, don't tell them to start from the Old Testament, especially with children, people that want to lay a foundation for. Let them start from the New Testament. More relatable. Let them start reading about Jesus. More relatable. Then they'll start by learning about love, not about law. But as you grow as a person, as you grow as a spiritual person, I advise you to go to the Old Testament. A lot of enlightenment is found in the Old Testament, especially that book of Genesis. Genesis chapter 1, chapter 2. Read it. Very, very insightful. Very insightful. I advise everyone to read the book of Genesis. A lot of people feel the story of Adam and Eve as an old story. We've moved on from it. No, you can never move on from that story because that is the plan. It never changed. People think it changed from being the plan when they were kicked out. No, it is still the plan. Now, what the Bible is trying to do, everything after the story of the Garden of Eden, is to get us back in the plan. And a lot of the Old Testament, when you read it, getting back in the plan had conditions. God was testing man to see, man, try to get back in the plan your own way. And you will realize that is almost impossible, if not outrightly impossible. Then the New Testament was telling us God's way of getting us back in the plan. So I want to have you know that in Garden of Eden, the relationship of Adam with God, the relationship of Adam with Eve, the relationship of Adam and Eve with God, still very relatable and still God's plan for man, for woman, for marriage, for relationship with Him. So it's not outdated. It's not a lost opportunity. No, not a lost opportunity. It's how to get back there. But God expects that of us. So I go back to Adam. And people say, why am I going back to Adam? Why Adam? Why not any other person? Because Adam precedes culture. Adam and Eve precede culture. They were clean slates. Immediately Adam and Eve left the garden, they started having children. Immediately they had Cain and Abel. Culture started. You know why culture started? Because Cain splintered. And Cain started giving birth to a group of people with particular animalistic, violent tendencies. That became a culture outside of the other children of Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve were the only stage in which man existed without outside culture. There was only one way of living, God's way. So I go back to Adam and Eve. Because culture is man-made. Culture is man-made. So there's no way we can talk about culture and fully embrace spiritual living. No matter how much talk about culture, culture will always bring something that makes us less spiritual. Every culture. Western culture, Eastern culture, African culture, everything has a man-made corruption in it. African culture is an amazing culture. Amazing. Teaches respect, love, kindness, patience, all those things, amazing proverbs. But when you dig deep into it, there are some practices that we've had very long ago that were animalistic. That were violent, that were inhumane, that were misogynistic, that were even feminist in our African culture. But it's not unique to us. The same thing with the Incas, with the Romans, with the Jews, with the Asians, with the Persians. All of us, we all share culture. But culture can be 99% good, but it's the 1% from man that always opposes God's way. That's why we need to be careful with culture. Once you become spiritual, there will be some parts of your culture that you shouldn't engage with. There would be. Some parts of your culture will totally attack your spirituality. So if you are becoming spiritually awakened, just realize that you need to become blind to some parts of your culture. And when I mean blind, I mean do not look at them anymore. You turn your back to them. Culture is man-made. That's why culture cannot be holy. I don't care what culture it is. The Jews, as they were called the children of God, within their culture were a lot of unholy things that were instituted not by God, but by their founding fathers. Some of their founding fathers, some of their kings, some of their judges who had no godliness. So when you read the Bible and just adopt everything the Jews do, no, you would adopt some bad things. You need to be able to read the Bible and separate some cultural information from spiritual instruction. You need to be able to separate cultural information from spiritual instruction. There's some things you read in the Bible are just they're for Jews. Jewish culture. Some of them are Persian culture. Some of them in the Bible, when the Romans took over and imposed this culture on the Jews and the Israelites, were Roman culture. You're not meant to carry them along with you. So when you take the Bible and say, word for word, the Bible says we should do this, check whether it's spiritual or cultural. Check whether it's spiritual or cultural. The only part of the Bible you can read and take everything is that first book of the Bible. The first book, first few chapters, Adam and Eve within the garden. No culture. All spiritual. 100% spiritual. Nothing cultural about it. That's why I go back to that. Go back to Adam. When you read God's conversations with Adam, preceding Eve and after Eve, is there anywhere in the Bible where God instructs Adam to protect Eve or to provide for Eve? That instruction doesn't exist. It is not a spiritual instruction. I say it again, it's a cultural instruction. It's a cultural instruction born out of insecurity and fear and a lack of identity. Did God ever instruct Eve to take care of Adam and to protect him? No. Those things were God's responsibilities. Provision, protection is not man's job. It has never been. It is man's idea. It's man's ideology, not man's duty. It's our ideology. It's our ideology. And men have taken up this over the years And a lot of men are judging themselves as good men, patting themselves on the back because they are providing and protecting, but dropping the ball in every other area. A lot of men, when they die and face God, they say, I did well for my family. And God will say, you didn't do anything. Your scorecard here is 0. Say, but I built a house. I bought cars, sent my children to the best of schools, protected them, made sure no harm came to them. I said, 0. You didn't do anything. You are not a responsible man. You are an irresponsible man. Wasted your time on earth, wasted your family, wasted your marriage. A lot of men will say, God, what responsibility? That's not what I was taught. That's not what your word taught me. I said, you didn't learn from my word, you learned from culture. You're a misogynistic man. You're a chauvinistic man. A man that is not spiritual. You thought of your ego. It's your ego that drove you to do this thing, not my spirit. It was your ego. Look, when we say these things about protection and provision, they are toxic at worst, but insensitive at the lightest. They're insensitive. They're toxic, or they can destroy the man, but then they're insensitive to the condition of other men. You know, as I was in church and this was being said, the responsible man and stuff, and they were talking, a lot of men were talking about provision and protection and stuff. I looked around, and where I was, I saw a man trying to get to the toilet, and this man was shuffling because he had had a stroke many years earlier. Was shuffling, and toilet from the main church is 2 minutes. If you're walking really slowly, if you're walking briskly, it's less than a minute. It took this man about 5 to 7 minutes to get to the toilet. I don't know how long it would have taken for him to release his trousers to ease himself, how long it would have taken for him to put his trousers back on, but he couldn't move, not by any fault of his. He had a stroke. That man cannot protect his family anymore. That man cannot provide for his family anymore. When we give messages like that, we tell that people like that indirectly, by no fault of theirs, that they are irresponsible people. That's not true. There are men that are born with birth conditions. And that's why in Africa, this is the problem I have. You see, abroad, there's something I respect about people, but they're more open-minded. Someone can be born paralyzed from the neck down. From the neck down, the only thing he can move are his eyelids and his mouth, and he can hear. But anything from the neck down can't move, stiff. Abroad, you realize that guy will still get married. He will still find someone to love him for being a human being. Someone will look at the quality of his humanity. In Nigeria, that person is never getting married. I dare to say in Africa, that person is never getting married. You're never getting married. Neck down, no chance of you getting married. They even had chances for somebody waist down to get married. Talk less of neck down. Because in Nigeria and Africa, we totally believe that person is useless. What kind of man is that? Neck down. Can't do anything. He can't protect, he can't provide. So that person is conditioned to live with their family or their parents and to live like a dog. Restricted to one room. And that's why we don't empathize with them. Society doesn't empathize with handicaps in Nigeria. The handicapped, the disabled, we don't empathize with them. Those that are physically challenged, we don't empathize. That's why we go around, we do not see ramps, we do not see lifts, we do not see parking places for physically challenged people. We do not empathize with them. Because we see them as useless. Abroad, they don't. Because they realize there's still a human being in them. Now, why their culture is not totally disregarding of the human, but the African culture, we believe in that provision, protection. So once a man, even a woman, has physical challenges, can't walk, can't see, can't hear, can't move, no marriage. No marriage, no matter how good they are as human beings. You ain't getting married. If you get married, it's a miracle. So I saw this man. And then I remembered other men within the church who have had sicknesses, physically challenged. These people cannot provide. They definitely cannot protect. Their wives are stronger than them at that point in time. And then we tell them they are irresponsible men because they can't check these two boxes. That cannot be right. And that cannot be God. A lot of these things are cultural. A lot of these things are cultural. I see, if you want to know whether something is cultural or spiritual, just do one test. Cultural things cannot exist or thrive seamlessly in some cultures or in some environments or in some climates. Once you take a cultural thing and you try to transport it to another place, it will begin to fail or begin to grow in a weird way. It cannot manifest well across board. It will be frustrating for some people. That's the problem we have in Africa. We've taken Western culture, brought it here. I'm like, why doesn't it work for us? It doesn't work. It doesn't work in our environment. We've taken Western romance, bring it here. Our ladies are rebelling it. They don't like it. What they're trying to do is kind of cringe. It doesn't make sense. He's cheap. He's that. No, it's causing more fights than bringing people together because Western culture. That's why sometimes when we talk about romance, it's not spiritual romance. It's cultural romance. That's why when you take it from place to place, it doesn't work. Take fashion from place to place. The other day I was wearing a shirt. I'm like, I'm just not comfortable. I'm not comfortable. Why am I so hot in this shirt? I'm like, this shirt wasn't made for us. And immediately I went to change and I wore my native attire. And before I knew it, I started feeling cool. I felt cool visually and I also felt cool with the temperature. You understand? I felt cool. I started feeling the breeze again. Felt light. That's why it's funny when I see children go to school wearing sweaters from the UK and some funny material, cotton and polyester and whatever things that don't breathe in Nigeria. I wonder why the kids are frustrated in school. They dress them up for another culture. Doesn't work. Doesn't work. Our kids should not be wearing ties to school in this climate. Schools will force you to buy official school sweater, but then we don't. What do we need it for? How often is it that cold here? That's why our traditional attire doesn't come with sweaters. There's no sweater version of our traditional attires. It's cultural influence. Trust me, you don't feel that cold. You feel that cold psychologically. And a lot of times we feel that cold because we are using the wrong lotion. We should be using things that are greasier. But then we end up using, soft lotion that we're using abroad. It doesn't make sense. But so that I don't segue. Cultural influences is what makes us think that a man is to provide and protect. God never instituted that to be a responsibility of a human being, whether a man or a woman. It's toxic. And I'll tell you why it's toxic. And women should listen in here. Because a lot of women looking for men that can provide for them and protect them. And that becomes no. Think about it this way. If a man's duty is to provide and to protect, that's where he gets his validation from. That's where he gets his sense of significance from. Inevitably, what that means is that your weakness becomes that man's desire at every single time. Have you ever thought of that before as a woman? I want a man that can provide and protect me. A man that can provide and protect me. A responsible man. If you get one, that man will never pray that you're ever empowered. Empowerment, that infringes on his own standard of relevance. Once you become powerful, he by virtue becomes weaker. Then he feels less like a man. Do you think that man would ever build a society or make laws to celebrate your strength, whether intellectual or physical? You think so? You think that man will ever empower you to provide for yourself as a woman? When if he does that, he will begin to see that as a threat to his sense of responsibility as a man. Now, when I look at feminism, it's very funny to me. It's a very funny concept. Women want men to act in particular ways that is threatening to them. Why women are fighting as feminists is because a lot of these toxic standards have been put in place. They've been put in place. It's a woman trying to say, I want to show that I have power. I want to show that I can take care of myself. But they wouldn't need to do that if we didn't have the toxic culture of saying provision and protection was a man's job. Then women have latent tendency to protect, latent tendency to provide, stored up in them, and stored up energy is always destructive energy. So when it comes out as feminist. It comes out as harsh. It comes out as fierce. It comes out as uncompromising because it has been stored up for years. Because men are saying, you should be weak as a woman. It's not in your own box to provide for yourself. I should provide for you. That's why men make toxic statements. They're proud of themselves. I bought her a car, I bought her a house, I sent her abroad. How dare she tell me that I don't spend enough time with her? See how much I spend on her. So the woman has become an object of the man's exercise towards being a provider and for being a protector. So you are no better than a dog for him. You understand? You feed your dog. You buy a leash for your dog. You decide when you should walk your dog. Your dog becomes submissive, so you feel powerful. But a woman is not a dog. A woman is a human being with an essence that has power, that can help you provide, that can help, not help you provide, I don't want to put it that way, that can help you see God's power of provision. Everybody is nobody's duty. Everybody is a channel. God is the one that protects, is the one that provides, and he can choose anyone to do it with. I dare to say there are women that are stronger than me. And there's nothing wrong in marrying a woman that is stronger than you. Even when it comes to physical alteration, somebody is trying to jack you in the car, and the woman comes up and says, look, my husband. It doesn't matter. She might be interested in martial arts. I'm not interested. She might have the tendency. You don't understand that some people have more affiliation for martial arts, physical things. They are stronger. There's nothing wrong with people saying, hey, don't touch that guy, his wife come and deal with you. Why is there anything wrong with that? It's a chauvinistic mentality to say a woman that is interested in martial arts, interested in protecting her family, should not be able to express it. No. God has put that interest in her. That is who she is. What's wrong with a woman being the earner, the major earner in the family? Nothing wrong. But insecure men, how can a man who has been taught that he should provide and protect, how can he actually pray for his wife who is about to go for a job interview that will put her in a position that she begins to earn 10 times more than him? A lot of men will not pray that prayer. They will not pray it. They will never. That's why men, if you ask a lot of women, they've had opportunities, but they say, no, you're not going. You should never go for that opportunity. Never. It becomes toxic once it begins to oppose those cultural standards of provision and protection. A man who thinks his duty is to protect and to provide would always see his wife as an intruder once she begins to express tendencies that allows her to channel God's provision or channel a sense of God's protection. A man is married to somebody who is part of royalty, monarchy, the royal family. Who do you think is bringing more protection to the house? Who do you think is more of a channel of protection to the house? It's your wife. You understand? That's the truth. Nothing wrong with that. It's a blessing. Thank God for it. Thank God for that channel. Stop trying to tick the button of protection and provision. It's not your job. So, what is a man's job? What makes you a responsible man? Since it's not provision and protection, because some people feel totally stripped of their identity right now listening to this, and that's why they are opposing it in their heart. Some people are just standing this message right now. Understand? It has shaken your world. But please listen. I'm not going to leave you empty. There is an identity. What makes you a responsible man? What makes you a responsible man? What is it that when you take from one culture to the other can never fail? What is it that sickness cannot take away from you? What makes you a responsible man? It has less to do with your physical ability. It has more to do with your spirituality. What made Adam responsible? Because he heard God's assignment for him. Not just for him, but for the world. Because the garden was the world at that point in time. So when we say for him, we kind of restrict it to Adam. No, it wasn't an Adam assignment. It was a world assignment. Because that's what the world was made up of then. A responsible man is a man that has a relationship with God. If you look, women, listen. If you are dating a man, that man says he doesn't believe in God. You don't have a man. I don't care how much money he has, how strong he is, how influential. He doesn't believe in God. He's not a man. A man's sense of responsibility comes from his relationship with God. His ability to hear from God. His ability to say, this is what God is telling me to do. If you take God out of the situation, a human being is subpar. A human being is subpar. His ability to hear, doesn't have to do his bank account, doesn't have to do whether he doesn't have muscles or a six-pack, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter whether he has a physical challenge. His ability to be spiritual, which is to identify God in his life and to have a relationship with God to the point where he knows what is on God's mind for him, for the world, or to him, for the world. That is a responsible man. That is a responsible man. It's just one thing. It's not many things. It's not many things, just one thing. You see, when we read the story of Mary and Martha and Jesus, when Jesus went to visit Mary and Martha, see, Martha was going, the story in the Bible. Jesus went to visit his friends, Mary and Martha. These were sisters to Lazarus, who was very close friends to Jesus. Jesus went to their house one day, met Mary and Martha. Now, they all respected Jesus. They all saw God in Jesus. Now, Martha, when she saw God, she felt her job was to go around and just prepare, do many things, many preparations. But Mary just felt like sitting down and just hearing what God had to tell her. And Jesus told Martha, why are you going about doing many things? There's just one thing required. Look, this life is not complicated. We're the ones that are complicated with our culture, with our insecurity, with our lack of identity, with our fear. Just one thing. One thing makes a man responsible: his relationship with God. And to have a vision from God. Do you know what? I won't go this far. He might not be able to physically carry out that vision, but is able to carry the vision. And is able to assess the vision and see whether it's being executed right. He's a responsible man. So even the man that suffered a stroke, that can't walk as briskly as he used to walk before, as long as he's spiritually aware and can still tell his family or his wife, I have this leading from God. We should build a school. He might not be able to carry a pencil, but he's able to say, how far has that school gone? God is leading me to tell you should have 7 classrooms alone. We should use this material for the roof. He might not even know it to detail like that, but he's able to carry the vision. Spiritually, not physically. Physically is good too, you understand? But I want you to have known that that's why a man needs a woman. A woman is a helper. And this is what makes a responsible woman. A responsible woman is a woman who is able to identify a man with a vision. identify a man with a vision. Because you know what? A man with a vision carries a seed. A man with a vision carries a seed. And that seed cannot grow to what it's meant to be without a woman. When God calls a woman a helper, we always think a helper is a subservient position. I'm a helper to the man. It's very funny that our mentality of helper is weaker. You cannot help somebody if you are weaker. You cannot help somebody if you are weaker. Don't you understand? You cannot help someone if you are weaker. It takes a stronger person to help. Which tells us in not so many words that a woman is stronger. A woman is stronger. So this chauvinistic mentality, I'm a man, I should be stronger, I should protect. The woman is stronger. That's why she's the helper. A lot of times the woman is wiser. That's why she's the helper. Look, the less wise cannot help the wiser. It's not possible. So when God calls you the helper, it's a compliment. It's not a relegation. You're meant to see a man with a seed and help him, because he cannot, all he has is that seed. I've done a podcast about what sexual intercourse teaches us about the dynamics of a male and female relationship. As men, what we carry is a seed, semen. The seed is so small that you need a microscope to actually see it. That's how small it is. Without a woman, that seed will remain small. So a woman helps a man to make that seed grow, to scale that seed to a point where the seed is not just small, but the seed is impactful, and the seed can now multiply itself. Like it is with sexual intercourse. That's the same way it is with the relationship of marriage. I dare to say, we as men, we need women. That's why marriage, that's why God says, if you find a woman, you found a blessing, you've found favor. Because a woman can scale things to places you never thought you could get to. She is a helper. She's stronger. I tell you no lie, she's stronger. I'm telling you, a woman is stronger. Forget story. A woman is stronger. Let's put it out there. If there ever was a box, which I think there is in the box, to check and has to do with strength, it's for women, not for men. Women are stronger, but there's no box. The truth is, the woman is a better channel of God's strength than a man is. A woman is a better channel of God's strength than a man is. See, when we're in the hospital, and this has happened for all my kids, they've all had some point where they were admitted. My wife exhibited some strength that, to be honest with you, me, I can't do. Telling you. When we were in the hospital, my son was on admission for about 6 days. There was only space for one person to stay with him. And this is where, and when I talk about space, there was only a chair for one person. This is where our health care needs to be checked, because there's no care in our health. So if you are listening to this, you are influential in Nigerian health care system. Please listen to this. There is no care in our system. You pay a lot of money for subpar care. Just a chair. Just a chair. In a pediatric ward, you know that this child cannot stay on their own. How does a 3-year-old stay on his own? You put him on admission for several days and you put a chair for the adult to sit down on. Do you know that an adult sleeps? So you see, my wife had to stay there. She stayed there in that hospital. I came home, stayed with my other 2 kids, but she had the harder end of the stick. I say that she's much stronger than I am. I'm telling you. She has exhibited that so many times with our kids. I'm like, how does she do this thing? Me, I have to sleep. Oh, I don't even know. I have to sleep. A lot of times the kids are ill. She will stay awake. She will wake up at odd times. She's so strong. I don't know how women get this strength. That strength is spiritual strength. We don't understand that umbilical cord between them and their children is a symbol of strength. It's caught physically, but it's hardly caught emotionally, spiritually. It's there. Strength. That thing allows them to do things that men can never do. You need a strong woman. The world is so upside down that a woman is looking for a strong man. Men don't understand that you need a strong woman. Because a woman, most times, is the channel through which God shows his strength. Men just show muscle. So stop this madness of saying you are strong for the family because it's just your ego. You can only celebrate yourself as a father when, or as a man, a responsible man, or a responsible father, a responsible husband, if you have a mandate from God. You hear God. You know what God is telling you to do. That is what makes a responsible man. Even a man who is paralyzed from the neck down can still have a mandate. Don't you get it? When John the Baptist was about to be born, God limited the physical activity of his father, Zechariah. Limited him. Man couldn't talk. Man couldn't talk. And his job required him to talk. So he was out of work for a while. But God showed him, it's not about your physical, it's about your connection with me. Can you still express what I told you? And that's why when they asked what he would call the child, he said, bring something for me to write. I can still express God's vision because he was a responsible man. I think we need to listen to this today. I think somebody needs to take something away from this. A lot of people will not believe this message because your ego is too big. Because number one, you're not spiritual. So when I strip you of everything, that's your big job that says I'm providing, those your muscles that you go to the gym for, when I strip it, there's nothing left. That's why you're rejecting this message. That's the only reason why a man is rejecting this message. The only reason why a woman is rejecting this message, because you're not spiritual. You don't know how to identify a man with a vision. So you've enhanced everything, your bust, your hips, your skin, everything to attract a man to protect you and to provide for you. So when I say this message, you see emptiness. And the human being doesn't want to be empty. So if you're honest with yourself, you're listening to this and you're like, oh, I don't agree with what all I say. I don't agree. I'm not going to listen to this podcast again. It doesn't matter. I've already sown the seed. I've sown the seed if you listen this far. And I pray that somebody will come to water it so it can be a more effective human being. And stop living by cultural biases, by misogynistic tendencies, by feminist mentalities, by toxic ideologies, by parental hand-downs that do more to destroy, parental templates that are not right, and start to understand that there's one thing required, and it has God in it. It is God's vision. That's the most important thing in the world. It's God's work. We work together to foster God's work. That is what makes us responsible. Not our earning power, not our influence power, not our position, not our physical attraction. None of those things are as important, but God's work. We are going to be judged at the end of our lives by how much we did the work that God gave us, either as men or by proxy as women to align with. I tell you, that's what we're going to be judged with. That's what's going to be the standard and the basis of whether you lived a good life or not. My name is Tola, T.A. Alabi, and this is the TA Podcast.